The pregnancy test fell from Aduni's trembling hands, clattering onto the cracked concrete floor of the public toilet at Ojota bus terminal. 2 pink lines stared back at her like accusing eyes. Pregnant. At 19, with no family, no money, and the father of her child was the man everyone in Mushin called Kelechi the madman. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've ever felt completely alone, and comment below where you're watching from. 3 months earlier, Aduni Bakare had been sleeping under the Eco Bridge when she first saw him. Kelechi Okafor wandered the streets of Lagos Island talking to himself, his expensive-looking clothes torn and dirty, muttering about billions and betrayal. The other street people avoided him, crossing themselves and whispering about bad luck. But Aduni saw something different in his dark eyes during his lucid moments, a gentleness that reminded her of her late father. She'd been orphaned at 15 when a gas explosion claimed both parents in their small Ibadan home. The relatives who promised to care for her quickly grew tired of another mouth to feed. By 17, she was on Lagos streets, selling pure water at bus stops during the day and finding shelter wherever she could at night. The streets taught her to be invisible, to survive on scraps and kindness from strangers. Kelechi appeared outside the First Bank building on Lagos Island every morning at exactly 8 a.m., dressed in the same tattered designer suit, claiming he needed to check his account balance. The security guards would chase him away, sometimes roughly. Aduni started bringing him bread and water, speaking softly when his episodes grew violent. "They stole everything from me," he would whisper during his clearer moments, gripping her hands with surprising strength. "My own blood. My own family." The night it happened, Aduni had found Kelechi huddled behind a dumpster near Tafawa Balewa Square, rain soaking through his clothes. She'd led him to an abandoned building where she sometimes sheltered. He was shivering, more lucid than usual, speaking about his mother's death and lawyers who wouldn't return his calls. In the darkness of that abandoned room, 2 broken souls found each other. He was gentle, almost reverent, calling her my angel, as tears streamed down his face. It was her first time, his need desperate and raw. Afterward, he held her close, promising her a different life, speaking of houses and cars and traveling the world together. By morning, the madness had returned. He didn't remember her name or what had passed between them. He wandered away, leaving her with only the memory of his tender touch and whispered promises that now seemed like the ravings of his illness. Now, staring at those 2 pink lines, Aduni felt the weight of her situation crushing down. She was carrying the child of a mentally unstable homeless man. The stigma alone would make her unemployable. Nigerian society showed no mercy to unmarried mothers, especially poor ones. She stumbled out of the public toilet, ignoring the impatient knocking of the woman waiting outside. The bustling sounds of Ojota Motor Park, buses honking, conductors shouting destinations, traders hawking their wares, felt like a roar in her ears. The smell of suya and exhaust fumes made her stomach lurch. Her small savings of 8,000 naira, earned from washing clothes for families in Surulere, wouldn't last 2 months. She had no one to turn to, nowhere to go. The baby growing inside her was both a blessing and a curse, a piece of the gentle man she'd glimpsed beneath Kelechi's madness, but also a chain that would drag her deeper into poverty. As she walked toward the bus stop, a black Range Rover pulled up alongside her. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a woman in her 50s with perfectly styled hair and gold jewelry that caught the afternoon sun. Her resemblance to Kelechi was unmistakable, the same strong jawline, the same intelligent eyes. "You," the woman said, pointing a manicured finger at Aduni. "You're the girl who's been following my son around." Aduni's heart pounded. "I don't know what you mean, Ma." "Don't lie to me, child. I've had you watched. You think I don't know about the little games you're playing with Kelechi?" The woman's voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Get in the car. We need to talk." But just as Aduni stepped toward the vehicle, a commotion erupted behind them. Kelechi emerged from between 2 buses, his clothes more tattered than usual, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. He was shouting, not his usual incoherent rambles, but clear, angry words. "Mother, I see you found her. Did you think I wouldn't remember? Did you think the drugs would work forever? The woman's face went pale. She quickly rolled up the window and shouted something to her driver. As the Range Rover sped away, Kelechi grabbed Adunni's arm. His eyes were different now, sharp, focused, completely sane. "Adunni," he said, his voice steady for the first time since she'd known him. "I remember everything now. And there's something you need to know about who I really am. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below." "My name is Kelechi Okafor," he said, his grip firm on her arm as they stood in the chaos of Ojota Motor Park. "And I'm worth 4 billion naira." Adunni stared at him, certain the madness had returned. But his eyes remained clear, focused, completely different from the vacant stare she'd grown accustomed to. The way he stood had changed too, straighter, with an authority that made people unconsciously step aside as they passed. 3 years ago, I was the CEO of Okafor Industries, the largest shipping company in West Africa. We had contracts with international oil companies, government deals worth hundreds of millions. I lived in a mansion in Ikoyi, drove luxury cars, traveled the world for business. He pulled her away from the crowded motor park toward a quieter street. As they walked, he continued talking, his voice steady and sure. "When my father died, he left everything to me, his only son. My mother Obiageli and my stepbrother Emeka received generous allowances, but I inherited the empire. That's when everything changed." Adunni found herself believing him despite the impossibility of it all. The way he walked, talked, even the way he unconsciously expected others to move out of his path. It all spoke of someone who had once commanded respect. "They started slowly," Kelechi continued, leading her to a small canteen where he ordered rice and stew with the confidence of someone who had never worried about money. "First, they convinced the board that I needed a vacation after father's death. Then they suggested I see a psychiatrist for grief counseling. Dr. Emeka Nwosu, my stepbrother's friend from medical school." The pieces were falling into place. "The drugs," Adunni whispered. "Haloperidol, lithium, sometimes stronger things I couldn't pronounce. They told me I was having a breakdown, that the stress of running the company was destroying my mind. Every week, they increased the dosages. My memory became foggy, my thinking unclear. I started having episodes, violent outbursts I couldn't control." Kelechi paused, staring at the untouched food in front of him. "Within 6 months, they had me declared mentally incompetent. My mother became my legal guardian with power of attorney over all my assets. Emeka took over as interim CEO of the company. They moved me to a private facility in Abuja, told everyone I was receiving treatment." "But you escaped," Adunni said. "I pretended to take the medications while storing them in my cheek, then spitting them out later. It took months, but slowly my mind began to clear. The night I escaped, I overheard them talking. They were planning to have me permanently committed, to declare me dead to the business world. That's when I realized they intended to kill me once they'd transferred all the assets to offshore accounts." The weight of his story settled over Adunni like a heavy blanket. If this was true, then the father of her unborn child wasn't a mad homeless man, but one of Nigeria's wealthiest heirs, stolen from by his own family. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "To lawyers." Kelechi laughed bitterly. "With what proof?" "They had medical records showing I was mentally unstable. The company's lawyers were already on their payroll. Even my longtime friends avoided me, convinced I was dangerous. I had to stay hidden, pretend to still be mad while I gathered evidence." He reached into his tattered jacket and pulled out a small recording device and a stack of folded papers, both items carefully protected in plastic bags. 3 months on the streets, and I finally got what I needed. Recordings of them discussing the fraud, documents showing the illegal asset transfers, proof of the false medical diagnosis. "The day Adunni's voice trailed off, her cheeks warming with the memory. "The day I found hope again," Kelechi said softly, reaching across the table to take her hand. "You were the first person in years who looked at me like I was human, who showed me kindness without wanting anything in return. That night, holding you, I remembered what it felt like to not be alone. His thumb traced circles on her knuckles. I've been taking half doses of their drugs, enough to maintain the charade while staying functional. But seeing my mother today, knowing she's found you, we're both in danger now. Before Dunny could respond, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. We know about the pregnancy. Come to the address below alone, or we'll make sure you and the child disappear. You have 2 hours. The address was for a warehouse in Apapa, near the port where Okafor Industries once operated. Kelechi read the message over her shoulder, his jaw tightening with rage. They're monitoring your phone, he said. Probably have been since I started getting better. They know about the baby. How could they know I'm pregnant? I just found out myself. My mother has connections everywhere. Private clinics, hospital staff, even the woman who cleans the public toilets. If she wanted to know, she'd find out. His hands were shaking now, but not from madness, from fury. They'll kill you, Dunny. Kill you and the baby to make sure there are no loose ends. The reality of their situation hit her like a physical blow. She was 19, pregnant, with no family or resources to protect herself. And now she'd become a target of people wealthy enough to make anyone disappear without a trace. What do we do? She whispered. Kelechi stood up, his demeanor changing completely. Gone was any trace of the broken man she'd met on the streets. In his place stood someone who looked like he could command a boardroom or face down enemies. We go to war, he said. But first, I need to make you disappear. He pulled out an old Nokia phone, dialing a number from memory. Uncle Taiwo? It's Kelechi. Yes, I know everyone thinks I'm mad. Listen carefully. I need the favor you promised my father before he died. As he spoke rapidly in Yoruba, Dunny noticed a black car parked across the street. 2 men inside watching their table through the canteen window. One of them was speaking into a phone, his eyes never leaving her face. They'd been found. What do you think Kelechi's plan is? Will they escape in time? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more intense drama. The black sedan accelerated toward them as Kelechi grabbed Dunny's hand, pulling her through the back exit of the canteen into a narrow alley between buildings. Her pregnant body protested the sudden movement, but adrenaline kept her moving. This way, Kelechi shouted, leading her through a maze of back streets she'd never known existed. His knowledge of Lagos' hidden pathways was extensive, not the wandering of a madman, but the careful mapping of someone who'd been hunted for months. Behind them, car doors slammed and voices shouted orders in Igbo. These weren't street thugs, they were professionals. Dunny could hear their coordinated footsteps, the crackle of radio communications, the systematic way they were cutting off escape routes. They emerged onto a busy street in Mushin, blending into the crowd of evening commuters and market traders. Kelechi pulled her toward a waiting Okada, shoving a wad of naira into the driver's hand. Alaba Market, fast as you can, he commanded. There's extra money if you lose the cars following us. The Okada driver, a young Hausa man with tribal marks on his cheeks, grinned and gunned the engine. He wove through traffic with the fearless skill of someone who'd grown up on Lego streets, taking shortcuts through narrow gaps between vehicles that made Dunny grip Kelechi's waist tighter. How did you get money? She shouted over the engine noise. I've been selling information to competitors of Okafor Industries, he shouted back. Small things, nothing that would damage the company permanently. Just enough to survive while I gathered evidence. The Okada screeched to a halt at Alaba Market's main entrance. Kelechi jumped off and helped Dunny down, her legs shaky from the ride and pregnancy fatigue. He led her through the massive electronics market, past vendors selling everything from phone accessories to generators, deeper into the maze of shops and stalls. They stopped at a small phone repair shop where an elderly Igbo man looked up from a circuit board he was soldering. When he saw Kelechi, his weathered face broke into a shocked smile. Kelechi Okafor, my boy, what has happened to you? The man stood, embracing him despite his tattered appearance. Your mother said you were in treatment, that no one should contact you. Uncle Ngozi, everything my mother told you is a lie, Kelechi said urgently. She and Emeka have been drugging me, trying to steal the company. They're trying to kill me, and this woman who's carrying my child." Uncle Ngozi's expression hardened. He'd been one of Kelechi's father's oldest friends, a successful businessman who'd helped build Okafor Industries from nothing. If anyone would believe the truth, it would be him. "I suspected something was wrong when they refused to let anyone visit you. Your father would never have wanted his son locked away like a criminal." He turned to examine Adunni with shrewd eyes. "And you, daughter, you carry his grandchild?" Adunni nodded, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. "Yes, sir." Uncle Ngozi's face softened. "Then you are family now. Come, there's no time to waste." He led them to a back room where 3 other elderly men sat around a table playing drafts. Adunni recognized the type immediately. Successful Nigerian businessmen who'd built their empires through hard work and careful alliances. These were the kind of men who could move mountains with a phone call. "Gentlemen," Uncle Ngozi announced, "Kelechi needs our help." For the next hour, Kelechi presented his evidence. The recordings, the forged medical documents, bank statements showing suspicious transfers. The men listened in growing anger as the full scope of the betrayal became clear. "For billion naira," whispered Uncle Emeka Okonkwo, Kelechi's godfather. "They've already moved half of it to accounts in Switzerland and Dubai." "We need to move tonight," said Chief Adebayo, a lawyer who'd handled legal matters for Okafor Industries for 20 years. "I still have friends in the company who were loyal to your father. They've been waiting for proof that you were being cheated." While the men made rapid phone calls, Adunni sat quietly, overwhelmed by how quickly her life had changed. This morning she'd been a pregnant street girl with no future. Now she was apparently carrying the heir to a billion-naira empire, while being hunted by people wealthy enough to make her disappear. Uncle Ngozi returned with new clothes for both of them and a bag of supplies. "There's a safe house in Ikeja where you can stay tonight. Tomorrow we strike back. But first, we need to make sure the child is protected." He handed Adunni a medical card. "Dr. Adiz Akwu. She's the best gynecologist in Lagos and completely trustworthy. She'll examine you properly and make sure you and the baby are healthy. From now on, you'll have the best medical care money can buy." As they prepared to leave, Uncle Ngozi pulled Kelechi aside. "Son, if what you've told us is true, your mother and stepbrother have committed fraud that could put them in prison for decades. Are you prepared for what's coming? The scandal will be enormous. They destroyed my life, Uncle. They tried to steal everything my father built. And now they're threatening the mother of my child." Kelechi's voice was cold as steel. "I'm prepared for war." Just as they were about to leave through the back exit, Adunni's phone rang. The caller ID showed Kelechi's mother's number. "Answer it," Kelechi instructed. "Put it on speaker. Let's hear what they have to offer." Obiageli's voice was smooth, cultured, with a confident tone of someone used to getting her way. "Hello, dear. I believe we were interrupted earlier today. I'm calling to make you an offer." "I'm listening," Adunni said, trying to keep her voice steady. 5 million naira to disappear. Get rid of the pregnancy, leave Lagos, and never contact my son again. The money will be transferred to any account you specify within the hour." The men around the table exchanged glances. 5 million naira was more money than Adunni could have imagined, enough to set her up for life. "And if I refuse?" Adunni asked. Obiageli's voice turned ice cold. "Then you and your bastard child will join the other people who tried to take advantage of my family situation. There are crocodiles in Lagos Lagoon that are always hungry." But before Adunni could respond, Kelechi took the phone. "Hello, Mother," he said, his voice completely sane and controlled. "Did you really think your drugs would work forever?" The silence on the other end was deafening. Share this story with someone who loves African drama. What do you think happens when a mother realizes her plan has failed? Hit that like button and let me know in the comments. The silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds before Obiageli's composed voice returned, but Adunni could hear the tremor beneath it. "Kelechi, my son, you sound confused again. You know, the doctors said you might have episodes where you think everyone is against you. Come home, let me help you. Cut the act, mother. I have recordings of you and Emeka discussing how to divide my assets once I'm permanently committed. I have the real medical reports showing I was never mentally ill. I have bank statements showing where you've hid my money. Uncle Ngozi gave him an approving nod as Kelechi continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. But most importantly, I have witnesses to every crime you've committed. Uncle Ngozi, Uncle Emeka, Chief Adebayo, they're all here, and they've heard everything. You're making a mistake, Kelechi. Obi Ajili's mask was slipping completely now. That girl is nothing. A street rat who's trying to trap you with a pregnancy that probably isn't even yours. I'm your mother. I've sacrificed everything to protect you. You've sacrificed everything to rob me, Kelechi shot back. And you threatened to kill the woman carrying my child. That ends now. He hung up and immediately switched off the phone. Uncle Ngozi was already making calls, his voice urgent as he spoke to contacts in banks, government offices, and law enforcement. We have maybe 4 hours before they realize how serious this is, Chief Adebayo said. Once Obi Ajili understands you're truly lucid and have evidence, she'll try to destroy everything and flee the country. Or she'll try to have us killed, Uncle Emeka added grimly. Desperate people do desperate things. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. The safe house in Acadia turned out to be a comfortable 3-bedroom apartment in a gated community, complete with security guards and high walls topped with razor wire. Adunni found herself in a world she'd never imagined: marble floors, air conditioning, a kitchen stocked with more food than she'd seen in years. Dr. Adiz Akwu arrived within an hour, an elegant woman in her 40s who carried herself with professional authority. She examined Adunni thoroughly, confirming the pregnancy and assuring her that both mother and baby were healthy. "You're about 8 weeks along," the doctor said with a warm smile. "The baby is developing normally, though you're underweight and showing signs of malnutrition. We'll need to get you on proper vitamins and a nutrition plan immediately." As Dr. Akwu prepared to leave, she pulled Kelechi aside. "I've known your family for years. Your father delivered my daughter when I couldn't afford a good hospital. If Obi Ajili has truly done what you say, I want to help." "How?" Kelechi asked. "I sit on the board of Lagos State Medical Council. If we can prove she bribed doctors to falsify your psychiatric evaluation, I can have their licenses revoked and have her arrested for medical fraud." Meanwhile, across Lagos, in a luxury penthouse in Victoria Island, Obi Ajili Okafor paced her marble living room like a caged leopard. Her son Emeka sat in a leather chair, scrolling through his tablet with increasing anxiety. "The banks are freezing the offshore accounts," Emeka reported. "Someone with serious connections is making moves. We've lost access to almost 2 billion naira in the last 3 hours." Obi Ajili's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms. "That's impossible. Kelechi was drugged to unconsciousness this morning. I watched the orderlies give him the injection myself. Well, he's conscious now. And he has allies we didn't know about." Emeka set down the tablet, his face pale. "Mother, if they can prove we falsified his medical records, we're looking at fraud charges that carry 20-year sentences. Then we make sure they can't prove anything," Obi Ajili said coldly. "Call Dr. Nwosu. Tell him to destroy all the medical files related to Kelechi's treatment. Pay him whatever it takes." "And the girl?" "The girl disappears tonight, along with the child she's carrying. No DNA evidence, no paternity claims, no complications." Emeka hesitated. "Mother, murder is different from fraud. If we don't kill her, we spend the rest of our lives in Kirikiri prison." Obi Ajili's voice cracked like a whip. "Your brother was weak, just like his father. He let emotions cloud his judgment, got involved with some street whore who now threatens everything we've built." She walked to the window, staring out at the Lagos skyline, where millions of lights twinkled like fallen stars. "I've worked too hard to let everything fall apart because of one stupid boy's pregnancy. Call the specialists from Port Harcourt. Tell them we need a permanent solution by dawn." Back at the safe house, Kelechi sat beside Adunni on the living room sofa, both of them overwhelmed by the day's revelations. She changed into new clothes, a simple sundress that fit properly and made her feel almost normal. "Are you scared?" he asked, taking her hand in both of his. "Terrified," she admitted. "This morning I was worried about finding money for food. Now I'm carrying the heir to a fortune, and people want to kill me for it." "I won't let them hurt you," Kelechi said fiercely. "You saved my life when you showed me kindness on the streets. You gave me hope when I thought I had none left. I swear on my father's grave I'll protect you and our child." Adunni studied his face, the intelligent eyes, the strong jaw, the gentleness she'd seen even in his madness. "What happens if we win? If we get your company back and your mother goes to prison? Then we build a life together. You'll never be hungry again, never sleep on the streets, never worry about tomorrow. Our child will grow up with every advantage, every opportunity. And us." The question hung in the air between them. Before Kelechi could answer, Uncle Ngozi burst through the front door, his face grim with urgency. "They've moved faster than we expected," he announced. "Obiageli just transferred the remaining assets to a shell company in Dubai. The bank accounts are empty. And we just intercepted a phone call. She's hired professional killers from Port Harcourt. They're already on their way to Lagos." Through the window, the security lights of the compound suddenly went out, plunging them into darkness. "Get down," Uncle Ngozi shouted, but the sound of breaking glass was already filling the air. Will they survive the night? What happens when billions of naira and family honor are at stake? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more shocking twists. The living room window exploded inward as Adunni and Kelechi dove behind the sofa. 3 men in black tactical gear rappelled through the opening, their movements silent and professional. These weren't common area boys or hired thugs. These were military-trained killers. "Kitchen," Uncle Ngozi whispered urgently, crawling toward the back of the apartment. "There's an exit through the service door." Gunfire erupted in the hallway as the apartment's security system activated, flooding the rooms with blinding strobe lights. Through the chaos, Adunni heard orders being barked in crisp English. These men were organized, equipped, and deadly. Kelechi grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the kitchen as bullets chewed through the walls around them. Her pregnancy made her clumsy, slower than she needed to be, and she stumbled over an overturned chair. "I can't keep up," she gasped, one hand instinctively protecting her stomach. "You have to." Kelechi pulled her to her feet just as one of the attackers rounded the corner, assault rifle raised. Uncle Ngozi appeared behind the gunman, bringing a heavy frying pan down on his skull with a sickening crack. The man dropped like a stone, and the elderly businessman picked up the fallen rifle with practiced efficiency. "Nigerian Civil War," he explained grimly, checking the weapon's safety. "Some skills you never forget." They reached the kitchen service door just as the compound's main gate exploded open. Through the small window, Adunni could see more vehicles arriving, at least a dozen men surrounding the building with military precision. "The whole compound is compromised," Uncle Ngozi muttered, peering through the blinds. "They must have killed the security guards and cut the power to the neighborhood." Kelechi's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID showed his mother's number. "Answer it," Uncle Ngozi advised. "Keep her talking while I think of a way out." Kelechi put the phone on speaker. Obiageli's voice was calm, almost pleasant, as if she were discussing dinner plans rather than orchestrating a murder. "Hello, my dear son. I hope you're both comfortable in Uncle Ngozi's safe house. Though I suppose it wasn't as safe as you thought." "Call off your dogs, Mother," Kelechi said through gritted teeth. "This has gone far enough." "Oh, but we've only just begun. You see, I've decided that if I can't have my son back, then no one can. The company, the money, the family name, it all dies tonight." Uncle Ngozi's face went pale as he listened. "She's not just trying to eliminate witnesses," he whispered. "She's planning to burn everything down rather than lose control." "You're insane," Kelechi said into the phone. "I'm practical," Obiageli replied. "In 30 minutes, bombs will detonate at Okafor Industries headquarters, our shipping terminals, and 3 warehouse facilities. The insurance money will be deposited in accounts only I can access. Everyone will assume it was industrial sabotage or terrorism. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the hallway. They were running out of time. And us? Adunni asked, surprising herself by speaking. You, my dear, are unfortunate casualties of a home invasion gone wrong. The same criminals who bombed the company facilities will be blamed for your deaths. Very neat, very clean. Uncle Ngozi was frantically typing on his phone, sending messages to contacts throughout Lagos. If she destroys the company, thousands of jobs will be lost, he muttered. Entire communities depend on Okafor Industries for their livelihood. She doesn't care, Kelechi said bitterly. She never cared about anyone but herself. Even when my father was dying, she was already planning how to steal everything he'd built. Suddenly, the apartment filled with the sound of helicopter rotors. Through the kitchen window, they could see spotlights sweeping across the compound. But instead of more attackers, armed police officers were rappelling from the aircraft. What? Obiagili's voice on the phone sounded confused for the first time. Uncle Ngozi grinned. I told you I still had friends in high places. The Inspector General of Police owed your father several favors. When I explained the situation, he was very interested in preventing a terrorist attack on Lagos infrastructure. The gunfire in the building changed tone as police and attackers engaged. Through the chaos, a bullhorn voice echoed across the compound. This is the Nigerian Police Special Anti-Terrorism Unit. Surrender your weapons and exit the building with your hands visible. But even as police gained control of the situation, Adunni noticed Uncle Ngozi's expression growing more worried as he read messages on his phone. The bombs, he said urgently. She wasn't bluffing. Explosive devices have been detected at 4 Okafor Industries facilities. The bomb disposal units are on their way, but they might not reach them all in time. Kelechi stared at the phone, still connected to his mother. You would destroy everything father built just to spite me? Your father built nothing. Obiagili's composure finally cracked. I built that empire while he was drunk on palm wine and chasing other women. I networked, I negotiated, I sacrificed my youth and beauty to make his name great. And you think some street whore and her bastard child deserve to inherit what I created? Then why not just keep the company? Why destroy it? Because if I can't have it, no one can. Especially not you and your pregnant little nobody. Through the phone, they could hear sirens in the background. The police were closing in on Obiagili's location as well. But her voice remained defiant. The bombs are on a timer, Kelechi. Even if the police arrest me, even if you regain control of the company, there won't be anything left to inherit. You can have your little love story, but it will play out in poverty. Uncle Ngozi was coordinating with police bomb squads on multiple phones, his face grim with concentration. They found devices at 3 locations, but the main headquarters bomb is hidden somewhere in the building. They need building plans, security codes, anything that might help them locate it. Kelechi closed his eyes, thinking hard. The executive safe, he said suddenly. Father had a private safe installed in his office during the renovation 5 years ago. If Mother wanted maximum symbolic impact, she'd put the bomb there. How do we get that information to the bomb squad? Before anyone could answer, a new voice came through the phone, Emeka, sounding panicked. Mother, the police are at the building. We need to run. The helicopters are surrounding us. Let them come, Obiagili said coldly. In 15 minutes, Lagos will see the biggest explosion in its history. They can arrest my corpse. The line went dead. Through the kitchen window, Adunni could see the Lagos skyline in the distance, where the lights of Victoria Island gleamed like jewels. Somewhere in that forest of skyscrapers, a bomb was counting down that would kill hundreds of people and destroy the legacy of the man whose child she carried. Can they stop in time? She asked quietly. Uncle Ngozi looked up from his phones, his weathered face showing every one of his 70 years. I don't know, daughter. I just don't know. But as they watched, a massive explosion lit up the distant skyline, turning night into day for several seconds. The shockwave reached them moments later, rattling windows across Lagos. The Okafor Industries headquarters was gone. The explosion that just rocked Lagos will change everything. What happens when a billion-naira empire goes up in flames? Keep watching to find out if love can survive when everything is lost. The mushroom cloud rising over Victoria Island was visible for miles, a pillar of fire and smoke that painted the Lagos sky in shades of orange and red. Car alarms wailed across the city as windows shattered from the shockwave. The Okafor Industries headquarters, a 40-story testament to Nigerian enterprise, was now a crater surrounded by burning debris. Adunni stared at the destruction through the kitchen window, her hand pressed against her stomach as if protecting her unborn child from the horror. The company that should have been her baby's inheritance had just been reduced to rubble and flames. "How many people?" she whispered. Uncle Ngozi was frantically working his phone, coordinating with emergency services. The night security staff, cleaning crews, anyone working late. His voice trailed off as the magnitude of the tragedy sank in. Kelechi stood frozen, watching his father's life work burn. She killed them all. Security guards with families, cleaners trying to earn money for school fees, maintenance workers. His voice broke, all because she couldn't bear to lose control. Through the chaos, Uncle Ngozi's phone rang with an unknown number. He answered cautiously, putting it on speaker. "Is this Ngozi Okeke?" The voice was professional, authoritative. "Yes, who's asking?" "Detective Inspector Sarah Adelik, Lagos State Police. We have Obiageli Okafor and Emeka Okafor in custody. The woman is claiming her son is mentally unstable and orchestrated this entire situation. She says she was trying to protect him from making dangerous decisions. Even now, even after mass murder, Obiageli was trying to maintain her narrative of being the protective mother." "Inspector," Uncle Ngozi said carefully, "we have extensive evidence of fraud, medical manipulation, and conspiracy. The young man is completely sane, and his mother has been drugging him for years to steal his inheritance. We'll need to see that evidence. Can you bring Kelechi Okafor to the station for questioning?" Kelechi took the phone. "Inspector, I'll come willingly, but I need assurance that the woman carrying my child will be protected. My mother has already tried to have her killed tonight. The woman is pregnant." Inspector Adelik's voice sharpened. "Sir, if this child is heir to what's left of the Okafor estate, she's in extreme danger. Every criminal organization in Nigeria will see her as a target for kidnapping or extortion." The reality of their situation was becoming clearer by the minute. Even with Obiageli in custody, even with the truth finally coming to light, Adunni would never be safe. She carried the heir to billions of naira in insurance money, property holdings, and international investments that had survived the bombing. "What do we do?" Adunni asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, Uncle Ngozi's phone buzzed with an urgent message. His face went pale as he read it. "The other bombs," he said. 3 more facilities just exploded simultaneously. The shipping terminals, 2 warehouses, and a processing plant in Port Harcourt. She didn't just destroy the headquarters, she destroyed everything. The scale of Obiageli's revenge was breathtaking. Rather than lose control of the empire, she had obliterated it completely, taking hundreds of jobs and several lives with it. The insurance payouts would be enormous, but the human cost was devastating. "My father built that company over 30 years, Kelechi said, staring at the distant fires. Employed thousands of people, supported entire communities. She destroyed it all in one night." Dr. Adiz Akwu arrived just as the police were securing the compound. She immediately checked on Adunni, who was showing signs of stress-related complications from the night's trauma. Her blood pressure is elevated, and she's showing early signs of pregnancy complications, the doctor reported. She needs complete bed rest and constant monitoring. Any more stress could result in miscarriage. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Obiageli's attempts to eliminate the pregnancy might succeed through stress alone, even with her safely in police custody. Inspector Adelik arrived an hour later with a full escort, armed officers, forensic specialists, and child protection services. She was a tall, imposing woman in her 40s who radiated the authority of someone who had solved major crimes throughout her career. "Mr. Okafor," she said, studying Kelechi intently, Your mother is claiming you've been mentally unstable for years. She has medical documents, psychiatric evaluations, even video recordings of violent episodes. All fabricated or induced by drugs she was secretly administering. Kelechi replied calmly. We have evidence of the fraud, recordings of her admitting to the conspiracy, and witness testimony from medical professionals who can verify the false diagnosis. Inspector Adelik spent the next 2 hours reviewing the evidence Uncle Ngozi had compiled. The recordings of Obiageli discussing the fraud, the forged medical records, the suspicious financial transfers. It all painted a clear picture of systematic theft and manipulation. This is one of the most elaborate fraud schemes I've ever seen, the inspector admitted. But the bombing changes everything. We're not just talking about financial crimes anymore. This is mass murder, terrorism, destruction of national infrastructure. What happens to us now? Adunni asked. The woman you're carrying is potentially one of the wealthiest children in Nigeria, Inspector Adelik replied. Between the insurance payouts and the assets that survived the bombing, we're talking about inheritance worth several billion naira. That makes you the target of every criminal organization in West Africa. She paused, studying both of them carefully. I'm recommending witness protection until after the trial. New identities, relocation outside Nigeria, complete security coverage. It's the only way to keep you both alive. The thought of leaving Nigeria, of abandoning everything familiar, terrified Adunni almost as much as the attempts on her life. But as she looked at Kelechi, saw the determination in his eyes to protect her and their child, she realized they had no choice. Where would we go, she asked. South Africa, possibly. Or Ghana. Somewhere with good medical facilities for the pregnancy and strong enough security to keep you safe. But before they could discuss details, Uncle Ngozi received another urgent call. His expression grew increasingly grave as he listened. That was my contact at the central bank, he said after hanging up. The insurance companies are refusing to pay out on the bombing claims. They're saying the evidence points to an inside job, which voids the coverage. Without those payouts, there's no inheritance left, Kelechi finished. Everything my father built is truly gone. Adunni felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. Relief that she would no longer be a target for kidnappers and criminals. Disappointment that her child would not grow up with the advantages wealth could provide. But as she looked around the room at the people who had risked their lives to protect her, Uncle Ngozi, Dr. Akwu, even Inspector Adelik, she realized something important. We're still alive, she said quietly. We have each other, and we have her child. Maybe that's enough. Kelechi took her hand, squeezing gently. It's more than enough. My father started with nothing and built an empire. If I have to, I'll start over and build another one. Inspector Adelik's phone rang, interrupting the moment. She answered tersely, her expression growing more concerned with each word. Sir, yes sir. I understand. We'll move them immediately. She hung up and turned to face them, her professional mask slipping to show genuine worry. Obiageli just escaped from custody. She killed 2 officers during transport and disappeared into Lagos. And she's not alone. Emeka helped coordinate the escape from inside the police station. Through the window, the fires of Victoria Island still burned, casting an ominous glow across the Lagos skyline. She's coming for you, Inspector Adelik said simply. And this time, she has nothing left to lose. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see how this story ends. A desperate woman with nothing to lose is the most dangerous enemy of all. What would you do in Adunni's situation? Comment below. The convoy of police vehicles raced through Lagos in the pre-dawn darkness, sirens wailing as they navigated streets still littered with debris from the explosions. Adunni sat between Kelechi and Dr. Akwu in the armored car, her hands pressed protectively over her stomach as another wave of nausea hit her. The stress is affecting the pregnancy, Dr. Akwu said quietly, checking Adunni's pulse. If we don't get her somewhere safe and calm soon, we could lose the baby. Inspector Adelik spoke rapidly into her radio, coordinating with multiple units across the city. All units be advised, suspects are armed and extremely dangerous. Obiageli Okafor has military contacts from her late husband's business dealings. Assume they have access to weapons and explosives. Through the bulletproof windows, Adani could see Lagos awakening to the news of the bombing. Television screens in shop windows showed aerial footage of the destruction. Reporters standing before the smoking ruins of what had once been Nigeria's most successful shipping empire. The death toll was climbing. Security guards, cleaning staff, a pregnant woman who worked in accounting and had stayed late to finish a project. She killed a pregnant woman, Adani whispered, the parallel not lost on her. Someone just like me, trying to provide for her family. Kelechi's jaw tightened. My mother was always ruthless in business, but I never thought she was capable of mass murder. The woman who raised me, who sang lullabies and made pounded yam on Sundays, I don't know who she became. Greed changes people, Uncle Ngozi said from the front seat. I've seen it destroy families, turn brothers against each other, make mothers abandon their children. Money is a powerful poison. The convoy pulled into the compound of a private medical facility in Ikeja, chosen for its discreet location and advanced security systems. Dr. Akwu had arranged for a full prenatal examination to check the effects of the night's trauma on both mother and child. As they were escorted inside, Inspector Adelik's phone rang again. This time, her face went completely white as she listened. What is it? Kelechi asked. They found the officers who were transporting your mother and stepbrother. Both dead, execution style. But that's not the worst part. She paused, struggling with what she had to say next. The morgue where they took the bombing victims was attacked an hour ago. Someone broke in and stole tissue samples from several bodies. Uncle Ngozi frowned. Why would they steal from the dead? DNA, Dr. Akwu said immediately, her medical training making the connection. If they have tissue samples from the victims, they can plant DNA evidence to frame someone else for the bombing. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Obiageli wasn't just running. She was preparing to frame Kelechi for the terrorist attack. With his history of supposed mental illness and the complexity of the family financial dispute, it would be a convincing narrative. She's going to make it look like you orchestrated everything, Inspector Adelik said. The mentally unstable heir who killed his own mother and stepbrother, then bombed his own company to cover his tracks. Inside the medical facility, Dr. Akwu conducted a thorough examination while the others waited in an adjacent room. The ultrasound machine showed a tiny figure moving on the screen, heart beating steadily despite all the chaos surrounding its existence. The baby is fine, Dr. Akwu announced, bringing tears of relief to Adani's eyes. Strong heartbeat, normal development for 9 weeks. But the mother needs complete rest and reduced stress immediately. But rest was the one thing they couldn't provide. Inspector Adelik was fielding calls every few minutes as the manhunt for Obiageli intensified. Roadblocks had been set up at all major routes out of Lagos. Airports and seaports were being monitored, and every known associate of the Okafor family was under surveillance. She's too smart to use the obvious escape routes, Kelechi said, studying a map of Lagos State. My mother knows this city like she built it herself. She has safe houses, loyal contacts, people who owe her favors from decades of business dealings. Then where would she go? Inspector Adelik asked. Kelechi thought for a long moment, then pointed to an area on the map northeast of Lagos. Badagry. My father had a fishing camp there when I was young. It's isolated, accessible by water, and mother knows the local community leaders. If she wanted to disappear or launch one final attack, that's where she'd go. Before Inspector Adelik could coordinate a response, the lights in the medical facility went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, but in those few seconds of darkness, everyone understood what had happened. She's here, Uncle Ngozi whispered. Through the windows, they could see figures moving in the compound, not police officers, but people dressed in black tactical gear. The same professional killers from earlier, somehow tracking them despite the police protection. Dr. Akwu quickly moved Adani to an internal examination room without windows, while Kelechi and the others barricaded the main doors. Inspector Adelik was radioing for backup, but her voice carried little confidence that help would arrive in time. How did they find us so quickly? She asked. Uncle Ngozi checked his phone grimly. Someone in the police force is feeding her information. She knows our every move. The sound of gunfire erupted outside as the facility's security guards engaged the attackers. But these weren't ordinary criminals. They moved with military precision, systematically eliminating resistance while advancing toward the main building. In the examination room, Adunni clutched Kelechi's hand as another wave of contractions hit her. The stress was triggering early labor complications, exactly what Dr. Akwu had feared. I need to get her to a hospital immediately, the doctor said urgently. These aren't normal contractions, but if they continue, she could miscarry or suffer serious complications. We can't leave, Inspector Adelik replied. They have the building surrounded. But even as she spoke, the sound of helicopters filled the air, not police reinforcements, but private aircraft. Through the small window, they could see armed men rappelling onto the roof of the medical facility. She hired a mercenary company, Inspector Adelik realized. Military contractors, probably South African or European. This isn't just a murder attempt, it's a professional military operation. The lights went out again, this time permanently. In the darkness, they could hear boots on the floor above them, systematically searching room by room. The hunters were closing in, and there was nowhere left to run. Kelechi pulled Adunni close, whispering in her ear, "Whatever happens, remember that I love you. You saved my life, and you gave me hope when I had none. Our child will know that story, will know what love really means." "Don't talk like we're going to die," Adunni whispered back, but her voice was weak from pain and exhaustion. Dr. Akwu was preparing medical supplies in case they had to attempt an emergency delivery. Uncle Ngozi had found a service weapon from one of the fallen security guards and was checking its ammunition with the grim efficiency of a man who had survived one war and was prepared for another. The footsteps were getting closer. But just as the door to their corridor began to splinter under heavy impacts, a new sound filled the building. The distinctive crack of sniper rifles from multiple positions outside the facility. Inspector Adelik's radio crackled to life. "Inspector, this is Colonel Adebayo, Nigerian Army Special Operations. We have the building surrounded. Tell the civilians to stay down. We're coming in hard." Through the chaos of gunfire and shouting, one voice rose above the rest, Obiageli Okafor, screaming orders to her mercenaries in a mixture of English and Igbo, her composure finally completely shattered. "Kill them all. Kill the girl, kill the baby, burn everything. If I can't have my family, no one can." The final battle for the Okafor legacy was about to begin, and it would be fought in the corridors of a medical facility where new life was struggling to survive. What happens when a mother's love turns to deadly obsession? Will the army arrive in time? The next chapter will determine if love conquers all or if greed destroys everything. Colonel Adebayo's commandos moved through the medical facility like shadows, their night vision equipment giving them a decisive advantage over Obiageli's mercenaries. The sound of coordinated gunfire filled the building as professional soldiers engaged the hired killers in a running battle through corridors lined with medical equipment. In the examination room, Adunni's contractions were getting stronger despite Dr. Akwa's efforts to stop them. The stress hormones flooding her system were triggering premature labor, and there was nothing anyone could do to prevent it. "The baby's coming," Dr. Akwu announced grimly. "I need to attempt delivery here in the middle of a war zone." "Can you save them both?" Kelechi asked desperately. "I don't know. At 9 weeks, the baby isn't viable outside the womb. But if I don't act, we could lose the mother to hemorrhaging." The impossible choice hung in the air: save Adunni and lose the child, or risk both their lives trying to preserve the pregnancy. Before anyone could respond, the door to their room exploded inward. But instead of soldiers, Obiageli Okafor stood in the doorway, her expensive clothes torn and bloody, a pistol in her shaking hands. Behind her, Emeka supported himself against the doorframe, a bandage wrapped around his head from the prison escape. "My son," she said, her voice now completely unhinged. "Look what you've done. Look what your selfishness has cost us." She gestured with the gun toward the sounds of battle echoing through the building. Hundreds of people dead because you couldn't accept your place. My beautiful company destroyed because you believed the lies of this street whore. Mother, stop, Kelechi said, stepping between Obiageli and Adunni. It's over. The police know the truth. The army is here, and you're surrounded. Surrender now, and maybe you can avoid execution. Obiageli laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Execution? My dear child, I was dead the moment you chose her over your family. But I won't go alone. She raised the pistol, aiming directly at Adunni's swollen stomach. If I can't have my legacy, then there will be no legacy at all. Uncle Ngozi stepped forward, his own weapon trained on Obiageli. Put down the gun, daughter. You're not a killer. Despite everything, you're not a killer. I've already killed dozens of people tonight, she replied. What's two more? But before she could pull the trigger, Dr. Akwu made a desperate announcement that froze everyone in place. The bleeding has stopped, she said, looking up from between Adunni's legs. The contractions are subsiding. The baby is okay. For a moment, even Obiageli hesitated. The news that her grandchild was surviving, despite everything, seemed to penetrate her madness. A grandchild, she whispered. The next generation of Okafor blood. Emeka seized the moment of confusion to speak. Mother, we can still salvage this. The insurance companies will have to pay out eventually. We can rebuild, start over with the baby as the heir. The Okafor name doesn't have to die. The Okafor name died when your brother chose this nobody over his family, Obiageli snapped back. There is no redemption, no starting over. Only ending what should never have begun. She steadied her aim again, but this time Kelechi moved faster. He lunged forward, grabbing for the gun just as it discharged. The bullet went wide, shattering a medical cabinet, as mother and son struggled for control of the weapon. In the confusion, Inspector Adelik appeared in the doorway with two commandos. Drop your weapons. Now. But Emeka had produced his own pistol and was aiming at Adunni's bed. If she dies, the baby dies too. All of this ends now. The standoff lasted for eternal seconds. Guns pointed in multiple directions, the fate of an unborn child hanging in the balance, while the sounds of battle echoed from other parts of the building. It was Uncle Ngozi who broke the deadlock. Moving with surprising speed for a 70-year-old man, he tackled Emeka, sending both of them crashing into a medical trolley. The impact knocked Emeka's gun loose, and it slid across the floor. In the same instant, Kelechi managed to wrench the pistol away from his mother. She collapsed against the wall, finally defeated, tears streaming down her face. 30 years, she sobbed. 30 years I built that empire, sacrificed everything. And for what? To watch it burn, because my son fell in love with the first girl who showed him kindness. Colonel Adebayo entered the room with a full squad of soldiers, quickly securing the scene. Ma'am, Obiageli Okafor, you're under arrest for terrorism, mass murder, conspiracy, and attempted murder. As they led her away in handcuffs, she looked back at Adunni one last time. You think you've won, but you've destroyed us all. The Okafor name will be synonymous with murder and betrayal. Your child will grow up bearing that shame. After she was gone, the room fell silent except for the sound of Adunni's steady breathing. Dr. Akwu completed her examination, confirming that both mother and baby had survived the trauma. It's a miracle, she announced. All the stress, the trauma, the physical danger. By all medical logic, we should have lost the pregnancy. But the baby is fine. Inspector Adelik was coordinating with the army to secure the scene when her phone rang with an urgent call. She answered, her expression growing increasingly confused as she listened. Sir, are you certain? Yes, sir, I'll inform them immediately. She hung up and turned to face Kelechi and Adunni with an expression of disbelief. That was the Attorney General's office. They've been reviewing the evidence from tonight, including recordings made during the standoff. There's something you need to know about the insurance situation. What about it? Kelechi asked. When your mother made her final confession just now, she was being recorded by police surveillance equipment. She admitted to orchestrating the bombing for insurance fraud. That confession, combined with all the other evidence, has convinced the insurance companies to reverse their decision. Uncle Ngozi looked up from where he was treating a cut on his arm. What does that mean? It means the payouts will be honored. The total value of the policies, plus surviving assets and international holdings. Inspector Adelik paused for dramatic effect. We're looking at approximately 6 billion naira. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Despite everything, the bombing, the murder attempts, the destruction of the company, the Okafor fortune had not only survived, but had actually grown larger than ever. Adunni stared at Kelechi in shock. 6 billion naira? The child you're carrying, Inspector Adelik continued, is now potentially the wealthiest infant in Nigerian history. But as the dawn light began filtering through the windows of the medical facility, Adunni realized that the money, while important for their security and future, wasn't what mattered most. She was alive. Kelechi was alive. Their baby was alive. And for the first time since this nightmare began, they were truly free. However, Uncle Ngozi was frowning at a message on his phone, his expression darkening as he read. "What is it, Uncle?" Kelechi asked. "The courts have frozen all Okafor assets pending the criminal trial," he said quietly. "Until your mother and stepbrother are convicted, until all the legal proceedings are complete, we can't access any of the money." How long will that take? In Nigeria, with a case this complex? Could be years. As the reality of their situation settled over them, Adunni realized their ordeal was far from over. They had survived the night, but the real battle for justice, for their inheritance, and for their future was just beginning. And somewhere in Lagos, other members of the Okafor extended family were already making plans to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs. The fight for billions of naira was about to get even more complicated. Can love survive when an entire family fortune is at stake? What happens when everyone wants a piece of the pie? The final chapters will reveal shocking family secrets that could change everything. 6 months later, Adunni sat in the crowded waiting room of the Federal High Court in Lagos. Her pregnancy, now visible beneath the simple but elegant maternity dress Uncle Ngozi had bought her. At 28 weeks, she could feel the baby's strong kicks, as if her child was already preparing to fight for its birthright. The legal battle had been brutal and complex. Obiageli and Emeka faced charges ranging from fraud to terrorism, while distant Okafor relatives had emerged from across Nigeria, claiming their right to portions of the frozen estate. Cousins who hadn't spoken to the family in decades suddenly appeared with lawyers, arguing that as blood relatives, they deserved shares of the inheritance. "The prosecution is ready to call their next witness," announced Barrister Chidi Okonkwo, the lawyer Uncle Ngozi had hired to represent Kelechi's interests. He was a brilliant but expensive advocate who specialized in inheritance disputes, and his fees were eating through their limited resources. Kelechi took Adunni's hand as they entered the courtroom. Over the past months, he had transformed from the broken man she'd found on the streets into someone who commanded respect wherever he went. His hair was neatly cut, his suit perfectly tailored, and his bearing spoke of the business leader he was meant to be. But the gentleness in his eyes when he looked at her never changed. Justice Adebola Fashola presided over the case, a stern woman in her 60s known for her intolerance of corruption and her commitment to truth. She had already dismissed several frivolous claims from distant relatives, but the core issues remained unresolved. "Your Honor," announced the prosecutor, Barrister Amina Hassan, "the state calls Dr. Emeka Nwosu to the stand." The psychiatrist, who had helped orchestrate Kelechi's false diagnosis, entered the witness box, looking haggard and defeated. His medical license had been revoked, his practice destroyed, and he now faced criminal charges for his role in the conspiracy. "Dr. Nwosu," Barrister Hassan began, "please tell the court about your relationship with the defendants Obiageli and Emeka Okafor." "Emeka Okafor was my roommate at University of Ibadan Medical School," Dr. Nwosu admitted, his voice barely audible. "When he contacted me 3 years ago about his stepbrother's supposed mental illness, I trusted his judgment. Did you conduct an independent psychiatric evaluation of Kelechi Okafor?" Dr. Nwosu hung his head. "No. I relied on reports provided by Emeka, and falsified the records to support a diagnosis of bipolar disorder with psychotic episodes. A murmur ran through the packed courtroom. Many of Lagos' business elite had come to witness the trial that was reshaping the city's commercial landscape. Were you paid for these false reports? 2 million naira over 18 months, plus promises of lucrative contracts if Emeka took control of Okafor Industries. The testimony continued for 2 hours, with Dr. Nwosu detailing how the conspiracy had been orchestrated. The falsified medical records, the gradual increase in medication to induce genuine symptoms, the careful manipulation of Kelechi's business associates to accept his supposed mental decline. During cross-examination, Barrister Okonkwo was ruthless. Dr. Nwosu, by your own admission, you participated in a scheme that not only defrauded my client of billions of naira, but also destroyed his health and nearly cost him his sanity. How do you justify these actions? I thought I was helping treat a genuinely ill person, Dr. Nwosu stammered. Emeka showed me videos of Kelechi having violent episodes, medical reports from other doctors, all of which we now know were fabricated or induced by the very medications you prescribed. Yes. And during the 18 months you were treating my client, how many times did you see him personally for evaluation? Dr. Nwosu's voice dropped to a whisper. Never. All my interactions were through Emeka. The admission caused an uproar in the courtroom. Justice Fashola had to use her gavel repeatedly to restore order. But the most dramatic testimony came from an unexpected source. Chief Inspector David Okafor, a distant cousin who had served as the family patriarch since Kelechi's father's death, took the stand on the second day. Your Honor, he began, his deep voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded respect in both military and civilian life. There are matters concerning the Okafor family that have been hidden for decades. Barrister Hassan looked surprised. This testimony hadn't been scheduled, but Justice Fashola allowed it to proceed. The late Samuel Okafor, Kelechi's father, came to me shortly before his death with disturbing information about his wife Obiageli. Chief Inspector Okafor continued. He had discovered that she was not legally married to him. The courtroom erupted in shocked whispers. Adunni felt Kelechi's hand tighten around hers. What do you mean not legally married? Justice Fashola asked. Samuel's first wife, Kelechi's biological mother Grace, never died as everyone believed. She was forced to flee Nigeria in 1995 due to threats from Obiageli, but she remained legally married to Samuel until his death. The marriage ceremony between Samuel and Obiageli was therefore invalid. The implications were staggering. If Obiageli had never been legally married to Samuel, then her claim to widow's rights was fraudulent. Emeka, as her son from a previous relationship, had no legal claim to any Okafor assets. Furthermore, Chief Inspector Okafor continued, Samuel left sealed instructions with me to be opened only in the event of suspicious circumstances surrounding his family. Those instructions named Kelechi as his sole heir and specifically excluded both Obiageli and Emeka from any inheritance. Barrister Okonkwo was on his feet immediately. Your Honor, we request an immediate recess to review these new documents. During the break, Adunni and Kelechi sat in a small conference room while their legal team pored over the sealed envelope Chief Inspector Okafor had provided. The contents were explosive, not only the will excluding Obiageli and Emeka, but also evidence that Samuel had suspected his wife of planning his death. He knew she was trying to kill him, Kelechi said, reading his father's handwritten notes. He documented everything. The gradual poisoning, the manipulation of his medications, the preparation for taking control of the company. Why didn't he expose her while he was alive? Adunni asked. He was protecting me, Kelechi replied, his voice thick with emotion. He knew that if he moved against her directly, she would destroy me despite him. So he endured the poisoning, documented everything, and set up this legal trap for after his death. When court reconvened, Barrister Okonkwo presented the new evidence with devastating effect. Not only were Obiageli and Emeka guilty of fraud and attempted murder, but they had never had any legal right to control Okafor Industries in the first place. Justice Fashola studied the documents carefully before making her ruling. Based on the evidence presented, this court finds that the defendants Obiageli and Emeka Okafor obtained control of Okafor Industries through fraud, forgery, and illegal manipulation. All assets frozen by this court are hereby released to Kelechi Okafor as the sole legitimate heir. The courtroom exploded in celebration and outrage. Distant relatives who had hoped for portions of the estate realized they would receive nothing. Business rivals who had benefited from Okafor Industries' destruction understood that the company would soon be rebuilt under Kelechi's leadership. But as they left the courthouse, surrounded by reporters and well-wishers, Adunni noticed a group of men watching them from across the street. Their bearing and dress suggested they weren't journalists or curious citizens. "Kelechi," she said quietly, pointing toward the watchers. His expression grew serious as he recognized the threat. Competitors who profited from our destruction, criminal organizations that wanted to take over our shipping routes, political figures who were bribed by Mother. They all have reasons to want me dead now that I'm back. Uncle Ngozi appeared beside them, his own security team flanking him. The legal battle is over, but the real war is just beginning. With 6 billion naira at stake, every criminal organization in West Africa will be targeting you now. As they climbed into the armored vehicle that would take them to their new secure compound, Adunni realized that winning the inheritance was only the first challenge. Staying alive long enough to enjoy it would be much harder. And in her womb, the heir to the Okafor fortune moved restlessly, as if already sensing the dangerous world waiting outside. The baby kicked hard, and for a moment, Adunni wondered if her child was destined to spend its entire life looking over its shoulder, never knowing who could be trusted. But then Kelechi squeezed her hand, and she remembered that they had already survived the impossible. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The legal victory is just the beginning. With billions at stake and enemies everywhere, can they survive long enough to enjoy their fortune? The final chapter will reveal the ultimate price of wealth and power. 2 years later, Adunni stood on the balcony of their penthouse apartment in Banana Island, watching 18-month-old Samuel Okafor, named after his grandfather, play with his toys on the marble floor behind her. The child had inherited his father's intelligent eyes and his grandfather's strong jawline, and even at such a young age, he displayed a curiosity about the world that reminded everyone of the Okafor legacy. The rebuilt Okafor Industries was now worth more than 8 billion naira, making it one of the largest companies in West Africa. Kelechi had proven himself a brilliant businessman, expanding beyond shipping into renewable energy, technology, and real estate development across Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. But success had come with a price that money couldn't measure. Obiageli had been sentenced to life imprisonment for terrorism and mass murder, but she had died in Kirikiri prison 6 months into her sentence, officially from a heart attack, though rumors persisted that rival inmates had settled scores with the woman who had killed their relatives in the bombing. Emeka received 25 years for fraud and conspiracy and was serving his time in a maximum security facility in Abuja. The extended Okafor family members, who had tried to claim portions of the inheritance during the trial, now treated Kelechi and Adunni with careful respect, understanding that their wealth and influence could make or break careers throughout Nigeria. Some relationships had been salvaged, but the trust was forever broken. Dr. Adiz Akwu entered the apartment, her medical bag in hand for Samuel's monthly checkup. She had become not just a family physician, but a trusted friend, one of the few people who remembered them from their darkest days and loved them for who they were, not what they owned. "How's my favorite patient?" she asked, scooping Samuel into her arms. The toddler giggled and grabbed at her stethoscope, already showing the fearless curiosity that would serve him well in the business world he would someday inherit. "He's perfect," Adunni said, watching the examination with the protective instincts of a mother who had almost lost everything multiple times. Strong, healthy, and already trying to take apart every electronic device in the house. Just like his grandfather, Dr. Akwu observed. Samuel Sr. was always fascinated by how things worked, how systems could be improved and optimized. As the doctor completed her examination, Kelechi entered from his home office, ending a video conference with partners in Dubai. Despite their wealth and security, he still worked 18-hour days, driven by a need to prove that the Okafor name meant excellence, not the scandal and tragedy that had dominated the news during the trial. "Uncle Ngozi is coming for dinner tonight," he announced, loosening his tie. "He has news about the foundation." The Okafor Foundation had been Aduni's idea, using a portion of their wealth to help street children, orphans, and young women in situations similar to what she had faced. They funded schools, medical clinics, and vocational training programs across Lagos, providing opportunities for those society had forgotten. "How many children have we helped this year?" Aduni asked. "Over 3,000, Kelechi replied with pride. The new vocational center in Mushin is training young people in technology and business skills. Some of them are already starting their own companies." It was work that gave meaning to their wealth, proof that the Okafor fortune could be a force for good rather than just family destruction. But even their philanthropy had created new dangers. Criminal organizations that preyed on street children saw the foundation as a threat to their recruiting grounds. Uncle Ngozi arrived as the Lagos sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, the city's sprawling lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering darkness. At 72, he moved more slowly but remained sharp as ever, serving as the foundation's director and Kelechi's most trusted advisor. "We have a problem," he announced over dinner, his expression grave. 3 of our scholarship recipients have gone missing from the university in Ibadan. All young women from poor families, all studying business and technology." The blood drained from Aduni's face. Human trafficking? Possibly. Or someone targeting our program specifically, trying to send a message. Uncle Ngozi's weathered hands gripped his water glass tightly. "There are still people who resent your success, who see the foundation as flaunting wealth that should have been theirs." Dr. Akwu set down her fork, her appetite gone. "How do we protect them? We can't put security details on every scholarship recipient." "We can and we will," Kelechi said firmly. "Whatever costs, however many resources we need to allocate. No one who comes to us for help will be harmed because of their association with our family." As they discussed security protocols and investigation strategies, Samuel toddled around the dining room, blissfully unaware that he was already a target simply by being born into the Okafor family. Aduni watched him play, remembering the frightened pregnant teenager she had been just 3 years ago. The transformation was remarkable, from homeless orphan to one of the wealthiest women in Nigeria, from victim to advocate for others facing similar struggles. But the journey had taught her that money was just a tool. What mattered was how you used it and who you chose to become. Her phone buzzed with a message from Inspector Adelik, now promoted to Assistant Commissioner and heading a special unit that investigated crimes against the wealthy and powerful. The message was brief but alarming. "New intelligence suggests coordinated threats against your family. Recommend immediate security upgrade. Call me." "We have another problem," Aduni said quietly, showing the message to Kelechi. He read it without expression, but she could see the familiar tension in his shoulders. Even with all their success, all their security, all their power, they could never truly relax. There would always be someone who wanted what they had, someone who saw them as obstacles to be removed. "What do we do?" she asked. Kelechi looked around the table at Uncle Ngozi, Dr. Akwu, and their young son. These were the people who mattered, the relationships worth protecting regardless of the cost. "We do what Okafor men have always done," he said finally. "We adapt, we fight, and we survive. But this time, we make sure our enemies understand that attacking our family means declaring war on one of the most powerful organizations in Africa." He picked up Samuel, holding his son close. "This little boy will grow up in a world where the Okafor name means strength, integrity, and protection for those who need it, not the fear and corruption his grandmother tried to build." As if sensing the weight of expectations already settling on his tiny shoulders, Samuel looked up at his father with those intelligent eyes and smiled, not the innocent smile of a toddler, but something older, wiser, as if he already understood the legacy he would inherit. Uncle Ngozi raised his glass of palm wine, a tradition from the old days when Samuel Sr. was still alive. To the next generation of Okafor leadership, may they build something even greater than what we've restored. They drank the toast as Lagos glittered outside their windows. 8 billion naira in assets backing their family name, but knowing that their greatest wealth was still each other. Later that night, as Adunni tucked Samuel into his crib, she whispered a prayer she had learned on the streets. God, protect what matters most. Money can be replaced, businesses can be rebuilt, but family is forever. The baby stirred slightly, as if acknowledging her words, then settled into peaceful sleep. From homeless orphan to billionaire heiress, from victim to victor, Adunni's journey proved that in Nigeria, with enough courage, love, and determination, even the poorest girl could rise to claim her destiny. But as she turned off the lights and prepared for another night of security details and bulletproof cars, she understood that the real test wasn't surviving poverty. It was surviving wealth. The story of the Okafor family was far from over. In fact, with young Samuel beginning to walk and talk, showing signs of inheriting both his father's intelligence and his grandfather's business instincts, the next chapter was just beginning. And somewhere in Lagos, in boardrooms and back alleys, new enemies were already planning their moves against the family that had risen from the streets to rule an empire. But they would learn what Obi Ajili and Emeka had learned too late, that love, loyalty, and the bonds forged in hardship were stronger than greed, more valuable than gold, and more dangerous than any weapon money could buy. The poor orphan girl who got pregnant for a madman had become the mother of Nigeria's future business dynasty. And her story would be told for generations as proof that in Africa, dreams backed by determination could overcome any obstacle. What would you do with 8 billion naira? Could you handle the pressure of that much wealth and responsibility? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Tales by Ben for more incredible African stories. Share this with someone who believes in the power of love over money. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest episodes.